Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest in our Talking Tim webinar series. My name is Kevin Vita, and I'll be helping facilitate today's webinar. This webinar is sponsored by the Federal Highway Administration and hosted by the National Operations Center of Excellence, also known as NOCO. NOCO offers a variety of resources to support the transportation systems management and operations community. On the bottom right side of your screen, you can see a box called Download Slides. You can browse through those links for TSMO-related news and resources. Previous webinar recordings related to this topic can also be accessed from the NOCO website. I'm going to cover a few logistics for today's webinar. We are recording this webinar, and the recording, along with the presentation slides, will be available through the on-demand learning section of our website. All of the attendees are in listen-only mode by default, but we'd like you to stay engaged by using the Q&A and the discussion pod for comments and questions. We have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so if you have any questions, we encourage you to enter them in the pod as they come to your mind at any time. The questions will be read out loud one at a time by the moderator, and our presenters will answer each question. So that's all I have, and with that, I'll hand it over to our moderator, Paul Joden, to start us off.
Hey, thanks, Kevin, and thanks again to the Center of Excellence for supporting us and helping us with this. And I want to say to Tim Nation out there, welcome and Happy New Year on behalf of the TIM Federal Highway TIM program, Joe Tebow, Jim Ostridge, and myself. You'll hear from Jim in a minute. But we hope we have a lot of information today, so I'm going to stop with my nonsense and move right along and just tell you a little bit about what's happening today. We're going to give you a federal highway update. Jim and I are going to provide a federal highway update. Then we're going to have our good friend, Robin Helmerichs from Illinois, who has had a long-standing TIM program. We haven't heard from them on too many Talking Tims, but it's long overdue, but they've always been doing some real cool stuff out there. Anita Kim from USDOT's Volpe Center has been engaging with Jim and I on, and many others in USDOT on automated driving systems, but she has some information that is important to you folks regarding automated driving systems, so stay tuned for that. And then we're going to hear about the 2024 total solar eclipse planning. We're going to introduce here, but there's going to be a whole series to further explain that topic. So. Just wanted to let you know we're updating our federal highway, the TIM benefit cost tool, and we're having a workshop for anyone that wants to participate on February 28th. The workshop will provide an overview of the tool, and we already had one workshop on this already, but we're looking for input, and I won't read that slide to you with the bullets below, but a variety of input is requested from you and anyone else that you think might be appropriate for this thing. You can register for the workshop on the NOCO website. It should be listed there. I believe it is. Just some other stuff that we're doing at Federal Highway. We're still involved in the responder struck by and roadside worker safety project. Move over, if you recall, we're studying compliance with the Move Over law. It was directed by Congress, along with technologies that can help with responder safety. So we're working on that research. We need to provide an actual report to Congress. It's good that Congress is interested in responder safety, as we all are. We actually have another project on data collection on responder struck by. Believe it or not, it's a challenge to find out, to get data on struck bys. We have a pretty good handle, we think, on fatalities that are struck bys, but injuries, severe injuries, often career ending, we don't have a good handle on. So we have a couple of projects that are working in that direction. We're also doing a pretty active program right about in the middle of it now. Hopefully we'll have something later this summer on TIM on rural roads. So what are the challenges? I think many of us know what those are, but a lot of it's common sense. But then what are the opportunities for improving and helping folks out in the rural communities? So then the other, excuse me, Another project that's kind of a cornerstone of our project is the next generation traffic incident management, which seeks to focus on local roads and increasing the technology. We have about 40 states that have signed up to participate in that. So, excuse me, good time for a frog in my throat. So we're very active with that. We've been having a series of workshops on the different aspects of the program, and many of you are familiar with it. And by the way, I said a welcome to Tim Nation out there, but I know we have some other guests today, some new guests. So hopefully you'll be part of Tim Nation. But if it's just for this webinar, we certainly are glad you're able to participate with us as well. So, and those of you in Tim Nation know who you are, by the way. So next month, February 23rd, a reminder, the Talking Tim webinar series is the fourth Wednesday of every month, except for November and December, which are usually conflict with the holidays in those months. So next month, we're going to hear from one of the top Tim champions in the country, Todd Less. He's a Tim coordinator at the Pennsylvania Turnpike, on pretty cool things he's doing with collaborating to get responder safety information on PSAs on a national media with a national media company. So it was pretty interesting. Always good to hear from Todd. Our own Joe Tebow is going to give us an update on a recent Everyday Counts Tim video sharing workshop that we had. We have some pretty good information that we thought it would be best shared with the Tim community, and then we're going to have a presentation by the Tracks and Mark program manager. That's a program, for those of you that don't know, run by Iowa State DOT, but it's basically electronic reporting, crash reports, if you will. For it does more than just crash reports, but it's crash reports. It's almost like a pool fund study where the states pay a very, very minimal fee to participate. I think there's about 15 or 17 states that participate. It's a very cost-effective way of getting the electronic crash report in your state. And they also have an associated and computer-aided dispatch program platform that's available. And it is, when I say it's cost-effective, because it's not a for-profit enterprise. It's run by a state DOT, and it's sort of like a pool fund study. So with that, I think it's time for me to introduce Mr. Jim Ostridge, my partner in crime at Federal Highway. Jim?
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, everyone, for joining. 200, I keep an eye on the attendees meter there, over 200, and it keeps growing, 266. And again, welcome to all the new partners, if you will. We're so delighted to have you here. And as you saw with Paul's remarks, there is a ton of work that the U.S. DOT Federal Highway Administration Office of Operations TIM program is involved with, and many of you on this call today are collaborating with us. So thank you so much, and welcome to our friends from Mexico and Canada that are here today, especially to hear about the 2023-2024 solar eclipse. So this slide here, you see the line of duty deaths. We just ended a very sad and tragic year in 2021, as you can see by that red line, with 65. And I'll show another table here in a minute, but you can see it's climbing, 44 and 19, 46 and 20, and 21, 65. I can't say enough how Paul's remark about the injuries, the career-ending injuries, are probably in the hundreds, if not thousands, and that's a data point that we are very interested in capturing and knowing for the future. Let's see. Manage your slides, Jim. Here we go. Okay, the training. I'm happy to report that as of this week, you can see the number there. 565,000 responders have been trained since the beginning of the TIM responder training program, launched in 2012. And the numbers right now, and you'll see in another slide coming up, are starting to gain momentum again as we come out of the pandemic. So all of you that know Paul, Joe, and myself, we're always pushing to get the responders trained in your state because of the obvious benefits to life safety, a motorist life safety, responder life safety, and of course the economy, the benefits to commerce, et cetera. Here's the overall slide with the total at the bottom there. The in-person training added to the web-based training. It's a big deal. There's a tremendous amount of web-based training still going on through our training arm at the National Highway Institute, pardon me, and of course our partners over at Emergency Responder Safety Learning Network, Safety Institute. That's all the same. Here, I want to just share, again, we just finished a series of virtual train-to-trainer sessions across the country, East Coast, West Coast. And here you see again the totals for those 5 sessions that were just completed, the last one being January 12th, which was the largest class of the 4. And it goes without being said, very successful. And hopefully those that have attended are going to run with it and train responders in their state. I want to give a special shout out, Paul, Joe, and I, a special shout out to these men and women, champions, leaders for sure. Todd Lees, John Sullivan, Mark Brown, Angela Barnett, Jeff King, and Grady, who were the master instructors that volunteered their time, along with Katie Belmore, who is our contractor for the TIM program, and for many years Katie has been a huge champion and also participated. So shout out, big thank you to all of you once again. And so moving along, we just changed the goal. Take a look, folks. Take a look. Goal of 55% now. We're 10 years into this program. If you come down to the lower left, you'll see that we still have a ways to go to reach that 1.162375. We're almost at 50%, and many states have already, Georgia, for one, in the country exceeded their number. They're over 100% trained now in the state of Georgia. But all these, the numbers have changed based on that goal of 55%. But Paul, Joe, and I have confidence that you're all going to take this to heart and really run with the training in 2022. We have a huge opportunity now, turning the corner after 10 years. As Paul mentioned, the projects that we have, and certainly Everyday Counts Next Generation TIM project, which ends in December of this year, to push the envelope, not only for the training, but for the adoption and use of the technologies, again, that Paul mentioned, whether it's CAD data, TMCs, and unmanned aerial systems, video sharing, et cetera. So it's a big deal, and let's accelerate the training, please. Here's those tables that I mentioned earlier that shows the top 10 states all the way down. And yes, I want everyone that's here, if you're in a state that's barely training, you can see the progress since the last report. Those of you that are in the zeros or one, single digits, even double digits there, I mean, work with your committees, your training coordinators, whoever it is in your state, and take a closer look and try to get some classes on the schedule, please. Here's the top 10. I'd like to highlight and kudos to those. Here's that slide I mentioned. As far as the struck by fatalities, as Paul said, we have a pretty decent handle, and I'm sad to report that there are 4 already since the first of the year. And it's a little different right now. 3 firefighters and 1 law enforcement officer. Last year ended, I believe, with 30, if I'm not mistaken, law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty, struck by errant motorists, drug, drowsy, distracted, whatever the case is, followed by the towers and then fire and transportation and safe service patrols, road service technicians. I believe there were 2 and 2 for DOT and technicians. So this is not going away, folks. And one of the reasons, we do what we do, and every one of you can play a part here and influence these numbers to 0. Next, I'm going to give this back to Paul to introduce our friends in road weather management and work zones. Paul?
Okay, I thought we had a different order here, so I'm a little confused. But so
if you like, I can introduce them.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim. Go ahead. So.
Yeah, sorry about that, Paul. So next up is the special presentation today by the Federal Highway Administration and in collaboration with NASA. Our presenters today, Dr. Kelly, forgot how to pronounce Kelly's last name. Anyway, Kelly will be presenting on the solar eclipse portion of this, but initially, David Johnson, who's the team leader for our Office of Operations, Road Weather Management and Work Zone Management, will talk here a few minutes about what we're going to be doing. I'll talk at the end a little bit about traffic incident management, these programs that are going to be in supporting the 2023-2024 solar eclipse. So with that, David, are you on?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you loud and clear, my friend. Yep. Now okay.
Yeah, I thought we were going in a different order, so I think Dr. Kelly
I
was
think actually
first.
Robin is up next.
Okay, well,
Robin is actually up next. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. The last slide there followed us up, Jim. I'm not sure what that's exactly doing there, but we'll have to.
That's okay.
We'll have to follow that up. But all right, so I'll introduce. We'll move on with Robin Helmerichs, who is the TIM program manager for the state of Illinois and is a long TIM champion and friend of the TIM program, Jim and I, for a long time. So with that, I think I'll be quiet. Just let Robin tell us about what's happening with the Illinois TIM program.
Hi, this is Robin Helmerichs. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on our program today. I came from Federal Highway and was working there for about 18 years, 10 of it as their emergency coordinator. So that's when I first kind of got the taste of traffic incident management. And I was part of it back in 2008 when it all kind of came to tuition. And then luckily about almost 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to come back over to the state of Illinois, the Department of Transportation, and actually lead the program. So in the meantime, we've updated the program, and then we've kind of reached out and kind of starting some other initiatives. And what happened with this is the colonel of the training and academy, he came in new early in the year and was named, and he gave me a call And he goes, I would really like to add more traffic incident management to the state police and get our troopers trained a little bit better. And so we kind of brainstormed a little bit. And what he didn't know is even before he called, our small TIM group that kind of leads the whole, training thing and doing the program had already talked about doing like a refresher, because we're kind of a one and done in our state. And so we were trying to think, how can we reiterate and kind of emphasize some of the areas that maybe they need retrained on or just gentle reminders of. So in March 10 of last year, we got a group together, which consisted of, as you can kind of read on the slide, Major Dave Schneider, retired Captain Mark Kaczewski, Dave Keltner out of the District of Chicago, Lieutenant Jake Tressenreiter, and then a retired Sergeant Brad Sprague, who is also a deputy chief at Minooka Fire here in Illinois, Trooper Jennifer Larson, Dwayne Chappelle, and then me included. Anyway, so we met a couple times, discussed what concepts we'd like to cover, who would be kind of covering it, and over that time we had to come up with a whole bunch of ideas, scripts, concepts, how are we going to film this? Anyway, after all the logistics nightmare, which I'll get into a little bit later, we actually filmed last year on May 24th and 5th. And in our slide here, the upper one was kind of our group of 7, and then Mark Harchevsky, who couldn't make it that day because he now lives in Indiana. And then below is the majority of the people that was out there the day of the filming of all the kind of the scenes that we filmed. We were out there from about 8 o'clock in the morning till midnight, and then we all gathered again at the hotel and stayed up till 2, of which we had to get up the next morning and be ready to film for 2 colonels. To start this all out, we had to kind of have a vision, a storyboard, storyline, and I could have not done this without Lieutenant Jake Tressenreiter. Wonderful group of people, and so he kind of put this all together. So we kind of came up with everything at the beginning of what the whole concept was, what our objectives were, and then some of the other projects we had. And then we followed up with the timeline, who was all going to be included, where this was going to be filmed at. And this is an aerial shot of the EVOC track for the Illinois State Police out at their academy. What we decided to do is film there, since it would be off-road and safer. And I'll get into that a little bit more. And then we also included, what was all going to be on this video. We're going to have an opening video with a series of different scenes, and then speaking parts, and, where it was going to be at. As you can see, it says, live video with squad car in the background. So there's even a little bit of setup of the scene. And we all did this in coordination with the colonels of patrol and then the colonels of the academy and training. So logistics, we decided to go off-road, keep everybody safe. We had different scenarios. Some were going to be interstate. Some were, 2 lanes, same direction, more of a rural type of road, and then a 2-way, bi-directional. So we're trying to think, how do we make this look good in film? Because the academy just had, basic striping out there, and it was very dull. So we're like, we really want to make this look good. So luckily through IDOT and their group there, big support from our Bureau of Operations and our districts. We contacted the district, and they actually got a paint truck out there, and we completely striped the track, and we had it marked off what scenarios would be in what sections, and they actually matched to what we needed out there. So it was a wonderful event. Other things we had to do, the parts all had to be scripted, filmed, and edited. And these were all the ones that had actual speaking parts that day, and then a couple, the colonels and the director, we did different days. And then we had to think, how are we going to do this properly? Who all do we need in our traffic incident management area? So then I reached out to different departments nearby to see if they would be willing to donate their services. And so we had Rochester Fire Department, which is about 10 minutes from Pawnee, where we filmed, supplied their fire engine all day, all evening. A guy at work, actually, our communications director, runs an ambulance company or helps with that in his area. And he brought in his ambulance for the day. And then we had towing and crash vehicles that Shaner's Towing supplied, and then our IDOT District 6 had tandems, attenuators, and of course ISP had all their squad cars out there. And then filming and editing, oh my gosh, you have no idea what it is until you get ready to edit a film to go out. And the ISP Academy, Jim Chandler brought his production cameras, GoPros. We did editing through Premiere. ISP Crash Reconstruction, their Lieutenant Matt Borwinkle. Him and I worked together. He supplied all the guys out there with the UASs, and we had them flying day and night. And then we had filming over the 3 days, with the majority of it being on one day. And then our editing took, pretty much a couple days a week for about 5 weeks to get into them. And then I just kind of wanted to throw some pictures in of the UASs out there and the drone, some of it with the filming. What we covered during this video is we tried to stress safety vests, home placement, and the trap incident management area. We also hit upon vehicle lighting, Part 6I, and then some of the secondaries. So we tried to cover the majority of what we would think throughout the whole program of what we needed to hit upon. Here's some from the day of filming with the bidirectional roadway and cone placements. We had car crash, set up, everything realistic. We had the IDOT truck, if you had the taper and sending them into oncoming traffic, how that would affect, where near misses. We tried to hit upon reduced lighting effects on the drivers at night and kind of had some pictures that coordinated with it of if you have all your lights on, how you can blind drivers, and then if you have it reduced, how it kind of helps you drive through the scene a little safer. And then, of course, we tried to hit on retroreflectivity at night for vests and, how the distances worked with different vest types out there. We had wonderful support, and I'll kind of show this. I'm going to show portions of the video here in a few minutes and just kind of skip through and give you a kind of concept. So we had such great Carl support as well, and we had support of both agencies, the emergency response community. One thing, if you're going to do this, plan for at least twice the time you think it'll take out there. We had food and drink. I actually ended up cooking pulled pork for the whole group for the afternoon, and then we all threw our money in and went and got cheeseburgers at night. And then what the portion was that took forever to get this approved and out, it was the legal process that really took some time. We had it to them by the end of June, and we almost didn't get it out till October. We sent this through kind of a one-net type of training team, so what you'll see today are just some of the video clips that we had within it, and then in between videos we kind of had knowledge checks so that it kind of forced them to watch the whole videos and not just start it and walk away. So they had to answer questions throughout the whole thing too regarding with traffic incident management training. So I'm going to show just a little bit here of what the actual video looks like.
Hello, I'm Brendan Kelly, Director of the Illinois State Police. Hundreds of unplanned highway incidents occur each day throughout the state of Illinois. As a result, emergency responders of all disciplines selflessly answer the call for service.
So that is the ISP Director, Kelly, where he kind of went through a whole spiel of support of the program, that they need to follow all the rules and regulations. And so he did that for us, and we didn't even know we were going to be able to get him, so it was a great honor to have him as a part of it as well. I'll kind of skip through some of the portions here of what it is, but the opening video, which Jake Truffenrider actually put together all on his own, we've had a lot of troopers hit, near misses, and this is one that actually happened last year, and he still has not recovered to this point. So there'll be a little bit of his radio traffic, and then I'll skip through some. I'm going to start.
This is Eclipse, what's your emergency?
I see going on integrate, northbound I-55 at 57. There was a police squad on the side of the road here, and somebody just plowed completely in them. It alternate 1050-55 northbound 257, advise.
This is Deputy Martinez, Will County Sheriff's Office, 55 northbound south. Rear-end accident.
So that's some of the radio traffic that actually happened the day he was hit. And then we kind of talked about secondary crashes, and then we had a series of photos of all the hits through the troopers that we had. And then this video is one that semi-lost control and ended up hitting into the Peoria County Sheriff's and one of the state police. And then this is a sign outside of District 5, Joliet, enough is enough, move over. And then this is the major when he starts. Anyway, he's talking about the whole concept overall. And then this is the Colonel of Training in the Academy, Jamal Symington, and he goes over all the statistics we had for 1919 and then our 2 troopers that got killed in 2019 due to move over laws. So we kind of go through all of that. And then Brad Sprague, who's one of our main TIM trainers and biggest supporter of the program, been there since the beginning. He retired in 2019 and went over to be Deputy Chief of Minooka Fire Department. So he goes through, he's talking about the reasons for TIM, secondary crashes, goes into the NUTCD, all the different slides that we have in our TIM training program, and talks about a little bit of safety vest, vehicle lighting, cone requirements, all as part of this.
Street lights activated. And the rest.
And then pretty much when you're out there on scene, you have to think every vehicle coming through there is trying to kill you. And that's the way you got to kind of think to keep safe. Let me get you to the next video here. And this starts out with Trooper Jen Larson.
I just want to show you quickly how I set my squad car up so I can readily access my items to manage an incident. That way I can minimize my...
So she goes over, put on your safety vest, have it ready, don't have it in your trunk, be able to put it on before you even leave the vehicle. And then she talks about cone placements, and then when you move, get to a scene, everything you should think about when you're driving up, what you need to report back, if you move it, work it, blocking, and then we actually did videos showing 2 different methods of cone placement. So you have the overview from the UASs and then from the production cameras.
Take 10.
And so that way people actually understand and saying, hey, just take steps, throw them out, do the tapers. We actually kind of go through the process. And then Jake gets on there and talks about the traffic incident management areas, what each one is. And then we show actual video driving through the scene. And then your nighttime, kind of what you need to be thinking of, reduced lighting, flashlight usage. So that's that one. And then part 3. Sorry. There we go. We start out with Captain Dave Keltner and talks about all the different stopping sight distance, views, horizontal curves, and we actually was able to flip a truck where you need to have your cones, and then, lead vehicle, even give more initial warning. And then we had Trooper Dwayne Chappelle. We have a 2-way bidirectional, and how you should set up your cones, that you should actually stop traffic and then have people come out, or, what happens with the taper. So then we talked about nighttime vest usage, and then we actually filmed a clip of what it was actually out on scene of how long it took. And then Colonel McGrill finished up stating, please follow these methods to keep you safe. And then we did kind of a thank you slide through everybody that kind of helped through the process, and thanking everybody at the end. So overall, I think it turned out very well. It went out to every sworn officer in the state of Illinois. And they were all required to watch it, and then we've tried to get it out there, and we'll probably be incorporating a lot of this into our new Illinois program, I'm hoping very soon. So I know I'm kind of going past my time, so I will stop there. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. It's just robin.helmerichs@illinois.gov. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. That is fantastic. What a fantastic way to do a refresher, huh? And engage, get everyone engaged in the Illinois State Police. I know the Illinois had a significant problem in 2019. I think there was 27 struck-bys. There were 2 fatalities. I thought there were 3, but I guess you said 2. But then there was 27 other vehicles or people struck. Is that right, Robin?
Yes, and I wish I would have added all the statistics to all of it, of all the hits and what we've had this year. But we've just had numerous, and what's really bad is it's just, a lot of it's in the Chicago metro area. And outside of our ETP service patrol, there's portions of I-55 and 80 that are just very highly, trafficked every day, and we don't have any support out there for them right now. So we're hoping that's getting expanded to kind of help out with some of the issues. But in the meantime, we're trying to help the troops with what can I do to make a difference. And
really good. There are a few questions in the chat pod, and encourage anyone else that has questions. So we're going to try to wait till the end to have questions and make sure we get everyone in. And Kevin, the next presenter is actually Anita Kim from Volpe. So her presentation, please. There we go. And encouraging anyone that has questions on any of this, and hopefully we'll have time for questions at the end. So next up is a friend of Jim and I at the Volpe Center, which is part of USDOT. It's sort of an arm of USDOT and does a variety of functions. And Kim is coordinating some, connected automated vehicle activities, and in this case, automated driving systems, and is sort of trying to bring folks together to identify the interest of the public safety community. Probably didn't describe it 100% correctly, but that's about it, I think, at least. And Jim's the lead for our team with this program. I participate when I can. But anyways, I'll stop talking again and introduce Anita Kim.
Thank you, Paul. That was perfect. Hi, everyone. So as Paul mentioned, I'm Anita Kim. I'm with the USDOT Volpe Center. Just thank you all so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So before I start, quick disclaimer, yes, I do work for the U.S. Department of Transportation, but no, what I say today does not represent any official position or policy for the department. As Paul mentioned, I work for the Volpe Center. So for those of you who are not familiar with us, just 10 quick seconds on who we are. We're part of the DOT. We're federal employees. We have over 500 transportation experts who have expertise in everything ranging from traffic engineering to modeling to policy research. We're multimodal, and so we do work on, maritime issues, aviation, vehicle technology, and we also work across the department and also with other federal agencies and the broader transportation community. As Paul mentioned, most of the time in terms of my work and what I've been doing these days is really to try to understand what self-driving vehicles, or the term that I like to use is automated driving systems, ADS, really means for transportation agencies in terms of policy, infrastructure needs, and traffic operations. So to start, I'm just going to give folks a little bit of a background on automated driving systems and just to give you a sense of really what's happening today. So first, companies out there, they are continuing to develop these technologies to test and operate these ADS-equipped vehicles on public roads. The testing of these ADS systems, they're happening in different places across the country now. But frankly, there is a significant amount of testing that is happening really where the weather is actually a bit sunnier and drier. So I'm sure you guys may have heard that there's quite a bit of testing of these ADS vehicles in Arizona, Texas, California, but there is also testing happening in other places like Pennsylvania, Florida, Virginia, and other states as well. The types of vehicles that are being tested today, they really do range. So they range from your typical passenger vehicle, which is, being used for offering your sort of Uber Lyft style ride sharing services, to testing of large automated commercial trucks, which are being used for testing sort of long haul trucking freight applications, also to low speed shuttles, which are testing more transit style applications that are happening in these sort of small and constrained environments. Some of these ADS equipped vehicles, they're being tested with a safety driver inside. So a human that remains inside the vehicle that is ready to sort of take over control if there's a situation. But some of these vehicles, self-driving vehicles, ADS equipped vehicles, do not have a safety driver inside. As a result, some of them do offer or do have law enforcement and first responder interaction plans that have been published, although not every company has them. And I'm going to actually spend a few minutes on this presentation to talk through a little bit about what I'm finding there. Some states do require submission of these first responder interaction plans prior to testing. But you know what? Much of that really depends on what the testing requirement is in the state. The testing of these vehicles, the requirements, they vary state by state and by jurisdiction. So while some, may have a full sort of testing application system that a company may need to submit prior to testing, some states don't necessarily have those requirements. It really just varies and just depends. In looking at kind of the law enforcement and first responder interaction plans for ADS vehicles that I've seen, there is a bit of variability in the plans and the approach, but there are also some common elements and threads that really do cut across the different plans. So here's a quick list of examples of some ADS interaction plans that have been developed by industry so far. So Cruz, Neuro, Waymo, AVSC, and I'll talk through these in a bit. So, as I go through them, my job here is not to say one is better than the other, but really I just have this list here because I just want to raise awareness that these materials are out there. So even if you don't have, a company testing these types of vehicles in your state or your jurisdiction right now, I still definitely encourage you to go to these links. Take a look at the materials, take a look at the videos that they have, because it really just gives you a sense of what the ADS industry is saying and how they're proposing that their vehicles will interact with the first responder community. All right, so I'll start with talking a little bit about Waymo. So Waymo is a company, they've been doing quite a bit of testing in Arizona. Actually, they have several different vehicle models that they're using, but if you look at that picture over there on the right, that's a photo of the Chrysler Pacifica minivan that's been modified or changed to have self-driving capabilities. And so you can kind of see kind of the different sensors and that extra equipment on top of the roof there. They have an emergency response guide and a law enforcement interaction protocol. One of the sort of key characteristics or sample characteristics, if you look at that box on the left, is they have a 24/7 hotline for first responders. It's a dedicated line that people can use to communicate with the company if and when the vehicle is in an incident. Their guide also offers a bit of information on the vehicle capabilities and operational design domain. And so what that means is that really it talks about, well, what level of automation is their vehicle capable of and under what conditions can the vehicle operate. And so this concept of operational design domain, or in short, ODD, it's important. And it does show up in a few of these different emergency response guides across several companies. And it's important because it sort of tells you, what are the different conditions and operating environment that their vehicle should be able to handle safely. So for example, if you guys were to look at the Waymo, law enforcement interaction protocol and their guide, they say things like, yes, our vehicles can handle highways and city streets and light rain and fog. in sort of that fully autonomous driving mode. But certain conditions such as very heavy rain, heavy snow, icy conditions, mountainous roadways, those things might be outside of our ODD and can really limit our safe operations. And so this type of discussion does happen a bit in these emergency response guides, and I think it's useful for folks to understand, to see kind of the range and really the constraints that these vehicles that are still being tested, the constraints that they still operate within today. A couple other characteristics that I've started to look at and found with these emergency response guides is that they do also provide quite a bit of instruction on things like, well, how do I identify an autonomous vehicle or self-driving vehicle? How do I know, what kind of autonomous driving mode, whether it's in that mode or not? So it does talk a little bit about that. It also talks about how to disable the vehicle and the autonomous driving system. So, for example, I noted in this guide, they say, well, you have to disable the autonomous driving mode first before you can turn the vehicle off. So these plans, they provide some sort of instructions and details around how to safely interact with their vehicles. The guide, they also talks about towing, fire suppression, extrication, how to disable the different power sources and where those power sources are located. One thing that I'll note and that I found is that when a company or an ADS developer is using an existing vehicle as its base, like for here they're using a regular Chrysler Pacifica van, some of the protocols for the first response are similar to what you may use with the regular Chrysler van, but with some additional considerations given the additional technology with the self-driving technology that's on it. So they may have some additional considerations around high voltage areas, battery locations, and cut points. Neuro is another company that I'll just talk briefly about. They are also testing self-driving vehicles. They've mostly been focused on the concept of driverless delivery vehicles. So if you look at the picture on the right there, you see a small vehicle and a guy carrying a pizza box. And they've really been testing this delivery model where you can really imagine a range of applications for small driverless vehicles delivering groceries, delivering food, medicine, and so forth. Recently, Neuro has also released a law enforcement interaction plan. It also includes an emergency hotline and support from a remote operations specialist. This is the hotline, I think, is something that I found is pretty common across a lot of these different, law enforcement first responder interactions plans for sure. And some of the additional characteristics of the plan, they talk about, how you identify its vehicle, how do you pull it over? I know that's one question that I get quite a bit, which is, well, can these vehicles recognize, when they're getting pulled over? If you look at these company guides and instructions, they do note that, as long as, regular emergency signals are used, like lights and sirens, these vehicles should be able to pull themselves over safely. The Neuro's plan, they also talk about towing, fire suppression as well. They mention, and some of these companies do mention this, that they do arrange for towing themselves. They don't necessarily, I think in their plan, they don't, they sort of suggest against arranging third-party towing, which I thought was interesting, but that's not necessarily unique. And then similar to other plans, they talk about safe ways to disable the electrical power and what happens if the vehicle is submerged in water and so forth. One thing that's interesting about Neuro is that they're currently testing two different types of vehicles. So they have that R2 small delivery vehicle that you see on the right, but they're also currently testing just a regular Toyota Prius as well. And so they have slightly different crash response instructions, which vary based on which type of vehicle that, you may encounter. All right. The third company that I wanted to mention that has a law enforcement interaction plan is Cruz. They're also testing a, self-driving vehicle in the California area. They use a Chevy Bolt vehicle platform. That picture right there is actually a real picture of one in the wild in Northern California that was taken by my colleague who lives out in that area. And, when you look at the sample of characteristics that you see in their law enforcement interaction plan, there's a lot of similar elements. And so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but, they also have a critical response line, a dedicated line of communication that they want first responders to use if there is an incident. One thing that's interesting about Cruz is that they are a part of GM. So they also happen to offer this sort of OnStar functionality. They note in their plan that, a lot of times the first step is that if these vehicles that are being tested on public roads and there isn't a safety driver in the seat and there's an incident, a lot of the plans do note, hey, really your first sort of step should be to call the hotline or the critical response line to get sort of specific instruction from the company expert to give instruction on how to disable the vehicle and really approach the vehicle in a safe manner. Other things that their plan includes, it also has a discussion on vehicle capabilities as well as ODD, something I mentioned earlier. And it also talks about how you identify the vehicle, how you determine if it's in autonomous mode. I know for this vehicle, they mentioned that they have sort of a tablet that's placed in the center of the dash in the vehicle, and there's a little icon that tells you whether it's operating in or out of autonomous mode. And in addition, they also have other similar elements like the other plans, talking about safe disconnection for the high voltage battery, where their airbags are located, cut points, and so forth. All right, I think I'm going pretty quickly here. So that's a quick snapshot of what some of the companies that are developing these technologies, their current emergency response guides, law enforcement interaction plans, first responder interaction plans, they all have slightly different titles, what they have out there. Encourage you to take a look. It gives you a flavor of what are the common elements and where there might be some slight differences. In addition to industry, there's also other organizations that are doing, quite a bit in this area. So there's something called the Automated Vehicle Safety Consortium, or for short, AVSC. This is a consortium of members and companies that are also testing and developing ADS technologies. Currently, they've developed a set of best practices for first responder interactions. And that best practice guide does include a pretty robust discussion of what are the roles associated with different emergency situations. It also talks about specific use cases. What are the various scenarios that a first responder might encounter when it does, encounter an ADS-equipped vehicle that happens to be involved in an incident. It also gives some recommendations and also provides some suggested elements that if you are an entity that wants to put together a first responder interaction plan, here are some things that you might want to include. States are also starting to put things together as well. I recently learned that Pennsylvania DOT has their own plan. I'm pretty sure that there should be more information coming out on that. One thing I note is that I think part of their objective, and they mentioned this, is to really make sure that, because there's quite a bit of testing happening in Pennsylvania, that all the first responders are really appropriately aware of incident response considerations involving ADS technologies. And then finally, NHTSA. So NHTSA has an initiative called NHTSA AV Test. This initiative is, it involves sort of tracking the different testing of ADS-equipped vehicles and technologies that are occurring across the nation. In that sort of tracking database, they also include more information about the different companies that are involved, and they're also storing the actual law enforcement interaction plans as well. So if you want more information, I definitely think, that is a great source to go to give you a sense of where the testing's happening and what are the different materials that are available. Finally, I just wanted to leave everyone with some food for thought. We're not going to have, time to go into discussion about this now, but here are some questions that I'm always interested in hearing from the TIM community about when it comes to, automated driving systems and what this means and the types of sort of first responder interaction protocols and processes that we need to be thinking about. And so, my questions have always been, well, what are the information needs? What are the gaps? Another question is, with so many thousands of agencies involved, how do you really scale the training and education piece? Third, what are some of the challenges when you have multiple resources and companies involved, and when you have multiple resources that are specific to each technology and company, versus having sort of a central resource? Are there challenges with that? I'm curious what they would be. And then lastly, how do we really start to better coordinate with each other on this topic and the various efforts that are going on right now? All right. And with that, thank you so much. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Anita. Great information for everybody. As we were proceeding over the years, Jim and I in particular, and I say Jim and I because Joe is relatively new, although it's been almost 2 years, but Jim and I were hearing from the responder community about, their concerns. Has anyone, including is the responder community or public safety, been included in these discussions? Do they have awareness or whatever? So it's good to see that U.S. DOT is at least taking some lead and trying to coordinate and corral all this activity that's going on with all this advanced, rapidly advancing technology. And I'm glad you're helping lead the charge, Anita. So we appreciate that. And again, any questions into the chat, Paul, we'll try to answer them. Some I don't know that we can answer. That last one I'm not sure about. So anyways, we're going to keep on moving here, but the special presentation, some special guests for us TIM program folks is two friends. David Johnson is a friend of our program because he's also a manager within our office and sort of a sister program, if you will. But first up is going to be Dr. Kelly Korreck as a program manager for at NASA, and I guess one of the leads on going to tell us what is happening with this solar eclipse of 2024. So Kelly, I'll be quiet again and let you take it.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you everyone for inviting me. Yes, I am NASA, the agency program manager for the solar eclipse in 2023 and 2024. So we'll jump right in. What is the solar eclipse? And we are just in a very special place in the universe. The Earth and Moon and Sun are spaced and scaled just right, so that every once in a while, when the Moon comes in between the Sun and the Earth, it casts a shadow, and it causes the solar eclipse. And now if the Moon's on the other side and the Earth is casting the eclipse, we get a lunar eclipse. So that is what we're looking at. And when you're fully covered, that's a total solar eclipse, so the Sun totally goes away. Partial eclipse, you can see part of the Sun through this. And we don't have one every month in this configuration because the Moon is actually, and Earth is tilted to the Sun. So we're a 5-degree tilt that keeps this from happening every time. But again, this is a special configuration not found a lot in nature. And this is an example of an image of the 2017 eclipse. What you see when the Moon, the dark circle in there is the Moon, that covers the Sun, is you could actually see all of these beautiful streams, this corona, the crown of the Sun, coming out. That's ultra hot gas around 1 million degrees that you're seeing with the human eyes. And so NASA normally takes satellites and lots of telescopes in order to make these pictures, but this again special configuration just allows us every once in a while this glimpse. These red are actually prominences. They're billions of tons of material that could eject from the Sun and could cause things like space weather, which could cause outages in power grids, satellite issues, and issues to our astronauts. So this is why it's important for us to study this. Another phenomenon and why we care about this at Earth is it really does darken. So this is taken during kind of a midday time frame during a solar eclipse. And as you see, it's very dark, and it does get that dark, and birds come home to roost. Basically, nature thinks it's time to go to sleep. The air temperature can drop 10 to 15 degrees. So it's a really amazing thing. And if you haven't experienced one, you're in for a real treat for the ones that are coming up in the United States. So why does NASA care about the 2024 solar eclipse? First of all, safety is our number one core value and our number one priority during all these events. Science, both awareness of the missions that we have as well as the research and new discoveries we can make while this is actually happening. Public engagement, it's really a unique opportunity for everyone to participate in the celestial event. Science activation, so learners actually get to experience doing science during this eclipse. And citizen science, so citizens can gather data for scientific analysis and progress. And being that safety is number one, never look at the sun directly without proper eye protection. You could seriously injure your eyes. So everyone will need these glasses in order to safely view the sun. During totality, when the sun is completely covered, you actually can remove your glasses for that time. But then the second that it comes out of that, you must put them back on. And so for the annular eclipse in 23, this is going to be very important that someone has either the glasses or a sun funnel or some other way to view that safely so that you prevent damage from the eyes. So in 2017, one of this was a huge event, 70-mile wide path of totality, lasted for 2 minutes and 40 seconds on a rolling basis, and it swept from Oregon to South Carolina. About 12.2 million Americans lived within the path itself, which means that you got a total solar eclipse. But it was estimated that 215 million Americans saw it, either partial or full eclipse during that time. As you go away from the center line that has the series of dots and that denotes the total eclipse, you still get partial eclipse. So in 2017, the entire U.S., the continental U.S., did see some form of an eclipse. And in 2024, the situation will be the same. The entire U.S. will see some type of eclipse, and this path here is where you will actually see the total solar eclipse. This is on Monday, April 8th, 2024. It's a 115-mile wide path of totality. It lasts for a total of 4 minutes and 26 seconds. It sweeps from Mexico through 13 different states and major cities, which is different than the last eclipse. We're hitting Buffalo, San Antonio, Austin, Fort Worth, Dallas, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland, Buffalo, I think Toronto and Montreal as well. So there's going to be a lot more urban viewing of the eclipses. And 31.5 million people live in that path, 2.5 times the 2017 eclipse, and could estimated 40 to 50 million people could see it. And the next one is in 2045, so we really do want to catch this one if you can. And the annular eclipse of 2023 will actually happen in the morning of October 14th. And that'll go from Oregon, California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Mexico, Nicaragua, Belize, Honduras, Brazil, and Colombia. We'll see that. And that'll be 5 minutes, a 5-minute long ring of fire around the sun because it's a partial eclipse. And so that will also take some planning. So that's where we are right now. It's very early for NASA in our planning, but we are getting ready and geared up, and we will be looking for input and to help out in any way we can in the coming days. So with that, I will turn it back to Paul and David.
Yeah, so, Dave is, I guess, going to provide an overview of what Federal Highway is doing, but part of the reason we're providing this information to you now is so that the states in the path can start, planning, and there'll be some planning activities. And we'll, Jim is a lead for our team, but he will be, there'll be some designated webinars and things like that on how to plan for it. So stay tuned for that. But for now, this is David Johnson.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it, and very good information on the eclipse. And thanks again for having me. I saw over 300 people here, so congratulations and thank you for everything you do for the traveling public through traffic incident management. My name is David Johnson. I work in the office operations with Paul, Jim, and Joe. I'm the team leader for road weather management and Workzone management. So I'd like to talk about those two programs today and how it relates to the Eclipse, and then I will let Jim follow up and talk about traffic incident management and what FHWA is planning to do for this Eclipse. Eclipses are really neat. We all love, these events, but obviously as operation management and transportation folks, they create very unique challenges for us. I was working at the Colorado Department of Transportation in 2017 when the Eclipse came through. And as was mentioned, Wyoming was hit squarely with the totality. So the question is, well, you were in Colorado, right? So who cares? It is a neighboring state, and we did see massive influxes of travelers on our interstates leading into Wyoming. So it's just a good thing to think of, where even though you're not necessarily in the direct path of totality, that does not mean that you will not have changes in traffic patterns, driver behaviors, incidents, the whole gamut. So it's good that we start having these discussions and we start ramping up planning efforts. FHWA is obviously committed to do this. So one of the ways we will do this is through our road weather management program. The program is involved in a lot of different research and development, as well as stakeholder outreach. In road weather management, we look at traffic modeling and how it's impacted due to various weather events. We look at automated vehicles and how they're impacted by adverse weather. And we also are looking at things like how snowplow routing can be optimized based on forecasted events, storm events. So one of the things I want to talk about, while that research is really interesting, we do have a program called Pathfinder, which is a collaborative communication strategy between various agencies. These are particularly DOTs, but we also work in collaboration with folks like the National Weather Service, local law enforcement, EMS, safety patrol, tow patrols, all these agencies that are going to be impacted by something like an event like this Eclipse. Pathfinder is really an effort to bring those folks together, to have conversations ahead of time, and to make sure that the expected impacts to the traveling public, the messaging is consistent and concise, so that people can make clear decisions based on the information that we know. Now, obviously, we know the Eclipse is coming, but we don't know what the weather is going to be doing. So that will obviously play into how traffic and modeling and driver behavior changes. But we can still do things like regular outreach to the traveling public. A lot of DOTs have 511 systems that, typically during large storm events, can get hits in the millions. So they're a really good conduit to provide the traveling public with information ahead of time. And again, some folks, particularly in other program areas, might not be as aware of Pathfinder, but really it's just a communication strategy. And as we know, there's various things that can change travel behaviors during these events. And what we want to do is try and mitigate those impacts that would, stop mobility and cease production on the interstate and highway systems. For those who are interested, there is a link here from the Wyoming DOT that was published by FHWA in 2018. And it does, if you're interested, you can certainly read up on it. It's very quick, about 4-page case study on how the Wyoming DOT utilized Pathfinder during the Eclipse in 2017. Another program that we'll be working with is the Workzone management program. Again, a wide-reaching program that doesn't necessarily just talk about things like Eclipse. We deal with rulemaking through the 23 CFR 630, the safety and mobility rule. We also do innovation research, and we do things like safety workshops and outreach for commercial motor vehicles. Also under Workzone management, we have various strategies that we try to deploy to minimize traffic impacts through these large events. For folks who are familiar with things like transportation management plans or TMPs, now's a really good time to start working with your traffic engineers if you work at a DOT to start looking at those plans for significant work zones and come up with a strategy on what you'd like to do during this upcoming event. Now, in the past, some DOTs have said, we would like to limit or cease Workzone activities when the eclipse is taking place. Those kind of decisions really need to be made at a leadership level, but those conversations need to start taking place now, so that folks are aware that we might not be able to work on specific work zones during something like the eclipse. Also, there's smarter Workzone technologies like queue warning systems, ramp metering, dynamic lane merging, and commercial motor vehicle Workzone restrictions. All of these things need to be accounted for when we're talking about TMPs, and also how we can mitigate travel impacts during this event. Essentially, each eclipse, can be looked at as a planned special event. Like I said, we know it's coming, but there's parts of it that we're not going to know until we're very close to the actual event. So, of course, we want to loop in folks like our law enforcement, our construction contractors, and also our freight associations to make sure that they're aware that these impacts will be wide-reaching, and there might be a time where travel will not be, recommended to take place due to this event. Also, something to think about if you work at a DOT is if you have a traffic analysis group or any sort of modeling group that can look at traffic patterns. Maybe see if you can go back in the past at previous planned special events, maybe a large sporting event, a concert, or something like the previous eclipse, and see if you can find out where the bottlenecks took place, where the hot spots and problem areas were, and that might also inform decisions on what you would like to do through your agency on Workzone management and road weather management. So I think with that, Jim, I'll let you cover the TIM slide. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Great remarks. Some redundant here, but worth mentioning again. And I tell you, I'm excited. I'm getting excited hearing Dr. Korreck's remarks and yours as well, David. I know it's a ways out, but still, can't wait. As I've heard couple in the chat pod say, I believe. So the Federal Highway Traffic Incident Management Program Office, Paul, Joe, and I, we're uniquely positioned to support like we did in 2017. These are just 4 quick bullets that I put on yesterday very quickly onto the slide, but there's more. But certainly the national TIM community, or TIM Nation, as Paul mentioned, that our program office is closely tied with state, local, and federal agencies can be brought to bear, and that's what we intend to do. Many of you that are here today will collaborate with us in preparation, and it covers all what we call the multidiscipline responder response agencies, of which transportation and public works, police, fire, rescue, emergency medical, tow and recovery, etc., are involved with everything regarding the traffic incident program nationally, saving lives every day. So we'll be having discussions as we move forward with you, many of you, and some that we don't know. But one of the things that I thought we might be able to do is to establish an informal National TIM Solar Eclipse Working Group, some key folks across the path and maybe some outside. And through that series of solar eclipse webinars that I believe I mentioned at the beginning, or through that vehicle, or another standalone conference calls, just coordinate and discuss what needs to be done. obviously states, as David mentioned, everything here has to be vetted and in close collaboration with our public affairs offices, as has always been the case. But there would definitely be a lot of outreach and education and already existing model, if you will, existing materials that from previous events like this that will plagiarize and maybe build upon as well. So the DOTs, as many of you know, have in their arsenal what we call ITS, Intelligent Transportation Systems Infrastructure, such as fixed and portable changeable message signs, portable closed circuit TV, roadway sensors, and just a ton of capability from what we call traffic management centers or traffic operations centers, TMCs or TOCs, that collaborate also and work in tandem with safety service patrols and, of course, all the response agencies that I listed above. So our program, again, is uniquely positioned to help here. And another thing I'll mention is the emergency management agencies, the EMAs of the world, obviously would be brought in as well. And again, a majority of you, states, you know what you're doing. You've been here before, whether it's a large planned special event or a small, medium-sized planned special event. I think David makes a great point that, you could consider this a major planned special event and utilize or implement, all the tools at your disposal to prepare for what I said above, the increased traffic pre, during, and post event. There's going to be a lot of venues. Those of you recall 2017 for sure, where properties, farm properties, stadiums, parking lots, schools, you name it, were utilized as event watching, if you will, venues. So there's going to be a lot of vehicular traffic, pedestrian traffic, you name it, and public safety community, especially police, fire, transportation. All those above there are essential or key to everyone's safety and well-being. So at the end of the hopefully clear day, as David mentioned, we don't know what the weather's going to be, but hopefully at the end of, on April, 8th, I believe, April 8th will be a clear day and a great time for all. Let's see. We do have, and Vishali, maybe if you're still on, if you could put our website, our URL in the chat pod, that would be great. Thanks for moving that. This slide here, obviously useful information. As we said, the series, our first webinar following this outside of the Talking Tim occurs on April 19th, not far away. And you can see here in-depth presentations, as I mentioned, EMAs, emergency management agencies' approach to the solar eclipse, as well as other activities that will be hosted and resourced on the National Operations Center of Excellence that's hosting this here today as well. And then lastly, David and mine email information, and there is the URLs for all our programs, Road Weather Workzone and Tim. Lastly, and here's the Federal Highway Tim Program Office champions that you've heard it from Paul and myself, and you'll hear from Joe here in a moment. Paul, do you want to go to questions? We have about 10 minutes left before we give it to Joe to close us out.
Yeah, I think we can go to a couple of questions, but first I wanted to know, Kevin, can you unmute Adam Hops? And I did want to emphasize that, so what do we care? There's just it's going to be dark for 4 or 5 minutes. So, but what happened in previous Eclipse from the almost the nothing that I know about this stuff. I do know that there were certain areas that were deemed excellent viewing areas. So everyone rushes to those, excellent viewing areas, and not rushes in. They gradually go into those viewing areas, and then when it's over, everyone rushes out, which creates a big mess. Also, people pulling over on the side of the road where they shouldn't be was also an issue. But Adam, I know that the National Operations Center of Excellence is going to take a leadership role with this activity as well. Did you want to talk a little bit about that? Adam Hops? I guess not. Adam is I forget what his title is now, but he's one of the managers at the Operations Center of Excellence, and I know he's been working with Jim on this, right, Jim?
Oh yeah. Like you said, they're going to be taking the leadership they already have, and we'll be hosting the series of Eclipse webinars.
Were there any questions? I see a few questions in there for earlier presentations, but on this one, was there anything particular? I know that early on, Robin, if you're still on, someone had asked if those videos can be used by others. Are they just internal, or are they being posted, or how? What's the are there opportunities for others to use those videos, Robin?
Yes, actually, if you contact me, I can do like a large file transfer, and as long as I know they're being used and where, that is fine. I mean, you can take portions of them. We did them to help everybody, every emergency responder. So happy to assist in any way we can and make those, posted out there. And I'll try to find a way of getting them where everybody can just get to them via website. But for now, just go ahead and send me an email and I can send them out.
Well, that's fantastic, because that's such a great opportunity to refresh people. It's easy. They sit down and watch a video. They don't have to listen to an instructor or whatever, and everything is, all the information is there, right? You guys put a lot of effort into getting the proper information and being presented by some respectable people there.
It was a great team effort. I can just tell you that everybody pulled their weight, and it was just amazing. And the day we were out there, no one complained from the morning till we were out there till midnight. Everybody was, happy to help. They knew what it was for.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, so you're going to be hearing more from our partner Joe Tebow as we. On these Talking Tim webinars. Jim and I haven't been sharing the time with him, but we will be. But today we wanted to give an opportunity for Joe to say a few words and to basically close us out. Joe?
Hey, thanks, Paul. Before I do that, I see one last question popped up. I guess it's for Robin. Is YouTube an option for the video sharing or a private link?
I can look into it, or we'll try to do a Dropbox. I've just got to talk to a few people to see what we can do with our IDOT, with our computer people, our IT department. So I'll find a way, and then I can let Paul and Jim know, and they can send out to the group. Or, like I said, go ahead and just email me, and we'll make it work. I appreciate it. I'm glad for the support.
Outstanding. Well, as always, another great session. Take time to thank Kevin and the team at NOCO. There's some events coming up soon. We'll check on those. We have the next Talking Tim coming in February. Look forward to seeing and speaking with you all there. I want to thank the presenters, Anita Kim, Robin Helmerichs, Dave Johnson, Dr. Kelly Korreck, and all of you who took the time to join us today. Just as always, I always say it every time, Traffic incident management saves lives every single day. So, please, encourage everyone to take the training, to practice it each day. Keep your head on a swivel and stay safe, stay well, everyone. Look forward to hearing from you all next month. So with that said, another great session, and everyone stay well.